Right, welcome back, class. So yesterday and the day before, we message on my screen.
Your notification will remind quiet. That's it.
Okay, so today LIFO, right? Now this one's going to be similar in terms of utilizing the worksheet, but also the formulas. However, there's only one difference, okay? So in this case, we're looking at weighted average. The other two, we got to see using FIFO, which is we sold our first batches and we're good to go. And then the other one, we sold our last batches. So now we're good to go. So this one, I think, is going to be one of the most easiest form of calculating cost, especially when it deals with inventory, because especially this is dealing with making tons and tons of purchases of inventory, and you're constantly, selling them out. So you're constantly making these purchases. So with this kind of concept, right? If you guys remember, I used water bottles, right? No matter what given day and given time, the store is going to always constantly buying water, and water is a natural resource. You can't charge a certain price. You can't charge it at a high price, and you can't charge it at a low price. It's always going to be standard throughout the week. People come in and grab it. They don't care, because at this point, it doesn't matter how expensive it is to buy the water or how cheap it is to buy the water. We understand it as if we're trying to spread the entire cost amongst each individual item and take an average, okay? So once again, let's take a look at the formulas. So when we're dealing with our inventory worksheet, we still have the standard purchase price, which is our quantity times our unit price, okay? Then we have the standard total cost, which is going to be your purchase price plus your freight. However, the only difference now is, instead of a cost per item, we now are going to be introducing an average cost per item, okay? Which meaning we're going to take the total cost divided by the total quantity, okay? Because at this point, we don't care about batches. All we care about what was our total cost and how much quantity did we purchase in overall. Okay, so that's the most important concept here, is understanding this average right here. So, and then the other two formulas are once again standard as well. They don't change. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. So here we have an example where on June 1st we purchased 100 toys at $1.25 with a freight of $25, and then June 11th we purchased another 100 toys at $1.28, okay, with a freight of $26. So once again, we're going to journalize it as is, okay? And then here, we're going to plug it into our inventory worksheet. So in this case, we're going to do the same thing as we've been doing for FIFO and LIFO, all right? We're going to calculate our purchase price, which is the quantity times the units. So in this case, it's $125. Add 25 to it to give you your total cost of $150. Now in this case, we only have one batch and one batch only. So in this case, we do need to calculate the average cost per item because it's all that we have. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and calculate the average cost per item, which is $150 divided by 100, okay? Which gives you $1.50, okay? Now that we are now going to be making a second purchase of another 100 toys, right? Our journal is going to look just like this. Now we're going to be introducing the important concept here. Instead of taking instead of taking the cost per item, we're going to be taking a look at an overall average cost per item. So in this case, right, we're going to solve as usual. So purchase price here is once again $128. And then again, we're going to add the $26 freight to give you $154. And this time, we're not going to solve for our cost per item because in this case, it doesn't matter to us. However, I just do this for, so you know what to expect. Now, in this case, we don't care about that $154. What we care is when we tally up our totals, right? We care about this number now, the average cost per item, which is going to take the overall 304 divided by the 200, and that will give you your average cost per item. Because in this case, we don't care about our batches. We care about spreading the cost amongst every single item that we purchased. Okay? So I get an average of 152, which if you just look at our batches, right? If we have one for 150 and you have one for 154, what's in the middle? 152. Okay? So you can solve for the average if you would like by utilizing these two numbers, right? You can add 150 plus 154 divided by 2, and you'll get the same answer of 152. However, that's not how I want you to calculate it. I want you to calculate it down to a point where you're taking your total cost and you're dividing it by your total quantity. Okay? So once we've done that, we have an average, right? Now calculating this part is so easy. So let's take a look when we enter all that information into our inventory worksheet right here. So we're plugging our numbers in one at a time, right? We gathered our net purchases. We have no purchase returns or allowances, and we have no beginning balances. So right now, my net purchases is going to be my goods available. Once again, I'm given this key factor that at the end of on the 15th, someone took a physical count and told us that we have 80 items left on hand. So in this case, the cost of goods sold equation holds true. To solve for the cost of goods sold, right, you take your goods available minus your ending balance to get 120. Now here's the catch. Our table says that we have 200 items available for the grand total of $304, costing $1.52 per item. Since we're getting a grand total, right, we're adding up all of our quantities together, and it's going to tell me that it's on average, if we were to cost it out, it's going to cost me $1.52 each. So simple as this. You take your whole entire amount, you multiply by the average cost per item, and boom, you get your cost of goods sold. That is that easy. Okay? We don't care what came first. We don't care what came last. All we care about is the total quantities and the total cost. Okay? So once you solve for that, once again, you could choose to either solve for the remaining. So in this case, you might be able to solve for ending inventory first instead of having to solve for the cost of goods sold. Because at this point, it doesn't matter which one you solve first because they're all going to be the same price point. Okay? So again, you could do 80 times 1.52, which is the average cost per item, and you're still going to get 121.60. Or if you want to do the easiest way or to ensure that they equal each other, 304 or the goods available minus the cost of goods sold. So 304 minus 182.40, you're going to get 121.60. Simple, easy. All right? Any questions so far? Nope. Any questions so far?
No.
Like I've mentioned before, this is the easiest one. And that's why I say we'll be done within the first hour of class. Okay? Because this is going to go by so quick. All right? So once again, of course, once we reach the end of our given period, we need to consider that we need to do a conversion entry. So just like we've been doing before, right? We recognize that we solved our ending inventory. We recognize that we solved our cost of goods sold. So we just plug in those numbers, right? Our purchase price, once again, was the $253. My total freight was $51. So they both equal out at the end of the day. Okay? So then what happens when you have beginning inventory? All right? So now this is another continuation of this scenario. However, we have now beginning inventory of 80 toys costing you a total of $120. Oh, that's supposed to be $121.60. 121.60. Okay? And then here it tells me that I made a couple more purchases along the way. So once again, once you get that ending inventory, you're going to plug it into your inventory on hand portion of the worksheet. Okay? Here, now we're looking at in context of making our purchases now. So once again, we made a purchase of 100 items at 127, giving us 127 plus 25 for the freight, giving us a total of 152. Now, once again, am I obligated to solve for my cost per item?
No.
No, I can skip it, but there you go. I solved it for it anyway. Okay? Once again, another purchase of 100 toys at $1.30, giving me purchase price of $130 plus 26 gives me $156. So once again, am I going to solve for my cost per item? You can, but you're not obligated to. So now I'm going to go ahead and tally up my grand total because now I'm at my ending balance. Now in this case, you have the option because in this case you have beginning inventory. If you solve for the average cost per item here, that's not actually true because we actually have a little more than that. So in this case, we could skip this one because we have a beginning inventory. So now I plug in all my numbers, right? I plug in all my net purchases, and now this time I plugged in my beginning balance. Okay? Now that I plugged in my beginning balances, now I need to calculate my total goods available, which in this case, 80 plus 200 gives me 280. 121.60 plus my 308 gives me 429.60. So now what happens here is that now I have a new total cost. So now I have to go ahead and recalculate a new average cost per item. So in this case, I'm going to take it up to my inventory and I'm going to solve for what that 280 is or what that 429.60 divided by 280. And then that's going to give me now a new average cost per item of $1.53 and 43 thousandth of a penny. Okay? Once we solve for this, now our duty is to solve for the cost of goods sold, which in this case, we know it's 220, right? Because we were given that 60 was our ending balance. So here, because we solved for our new average cost per item, we can now just take the 220 and calculate it here. Now this is where I'm going to show you how to use the equal round formula once again, because in this case, I'm selling 200 items, okay? In this case, I can sell up to 10,000 items if I wanted to. And if I were to round up or round down, that could be the determining factor whether I gain a profit or lose a profit, okay? Especially if I sell that 1,000th item, I can easily lose $1, or in this case, I would gain $1, but I can easily lose $1 if you rounded this up, okay? But in this case, it's not round up, it's rounded down. But you can easily lose $1 because of that 1/10 of a penny or that 1,000th of a penny will make a difference at the end of your, at the end of the day. So in this case, I will show you how to do the equal round because when we're dealing with this, right, when it costs to us, can we pay 1/10 of a penny?
No.
No. We have to pay a rounded amount because at the end of the day, when we cost our goods sold, we're zeroing out our inventory. But you don't want to, you can't even journalize 1/10 of a penny, right? Because of the rules of the accounting, they say they want it in terms of dollars. Can you have 1/10 of a penny?
No.
No. So in this case, everything's going to be rounded to the nearest penny. and I want you to calculate it first and then round your answer at the very end. Okay? I don't want you to round first and then, get a solid number after that. You can do it. It is completely accurate, completely correct way of doing accounting if you choose to round your numbers. But that means if you choose to round your numbers, you must be consistent and round everything beyond that. Okay? Now, for most inventory, they're more likely to round either up or down. Okay? They never usually keep it like this, but in my perspective, I think it's important that you keep that thousandth of a penny if you plan on selling like 10,000 items. You can easily lose $10 right there. Okay? Any questions so far? So now we're here. We're solving for the 220 items at 153.43 to give us a rounded number of $337.54. So once we do that, easy, we can either calculate at top or we can either calculate from taking our goods available, and there you go. It should be for $92.06. So any questions so far?
You said that you're going to show us equal round, but I missed that.
That's okay. I'm going to show you how to do it today.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. You didn't go over it yet. Okay, I'm sorry.
We did yesterday, but it was very vague. But today, it's definitely something that I'm going to show you today.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
One question.
Yes.
When it comes to the ledger, we just keep it the same, like we would what we purchase. Am I skipping ahead?
Now, you said the ledger.
I mean the journal. When we keep the journal, what we bought, what we purchase,
Mm-hmm.
and expenses. Just because we're doing it this on the weighted average does not affect the journal.
No, absolutely not. It's going to be exactly how you journalize it from the previous ones, right? When you recognize a sale or when you recognize a purchase, you do purchase expense, freight expense, and however you paid it, right? Whether you owe it on an account or whether you actually paid it in cash or with a check. But you are correct there. It stays the same. The only difference is when we calculate the cost of goods sold, that's where we have to add up all our things, and that's where we have to calculate it on our end, on the inventory side. But the books stay the same.
Okay.
Good question. All right. All right. Once again, once you reach here, you got to do your conversion entry. And this time we have beginning inventory once again. So here we're placing the information here of our ending plus our cost of goods sold, right? Plus our purchases, plus our freight, and then lastly our beginning inventory, which we entered in previously. Okay? So pretty straightforward, and yes. So let's take a look at the comparison between all three methods. Now notice this, right? So here is the ending inventory and the cost of goods sold. Now again, we went through all three examples in each PowerPoint, and let's look at the difference. So here with FIFO, our ending balance is $23.20, okay? And the cost of goods sold was $180.80, so it was kind of high. Now let's compare it to LIFO. LIFO, we actually lost inventory, but we end up selling more, okay? Or we end up costing more for LIFO, because if you guys remember, every time we made a purchase, the inventory cost per item, right? The unit price that we kept purchasing our items kept getting more and more expensive. So whichever method that works best for you, it's not in terms of, oh, I'm going to get rid of my most expensive ones first. It really depends on your product that you sell. Would it be best that you keep the lower part of the income? Lower part of the inventory, like your older purchases, or would it be better that you sell off your last ones first, right? It just depends on your company, honestly. So these things, but I'm just showing you here in measures, okay? Now compare it to the weighted average. I sold 120 items to give me an average cost of 182. So in this case, I didn't make a good profit or I didn't make a loss either. I'm kind of in between. Same thing here. When I have my inventory as 80, I have 121 remaining. So in this case, it's just right in the middle. You didn't cost it too high or you didn't cost it too low. So in this case, the best one, and actually you're going to see this more often in most businesses, because who has the time to keep track of what they bought first and what they bought last? All right. The easiest form, and like I've mentioned before, the easiest type of calculation is just to do the weighted average. And you're actually going to see weighted average more commonly used for like corporations, okay? However, obviously, when we talk about foods and things like that, they're more likely to be able to use the FIFO because they have those perishable goods, all right? So that's like the most common one would be FIFO for grocery stores. But if you're just a regular clothing store, it might be best for you to just do weighted average because it's the easiest type of calculation. You don't have to remember what came first. You don't have to keep a really good track of the inventory itself. All you care about is what is your totals, the total cost, and what is your total quantity, and take the average and spread the cost amongst every single item. Okay, so that way, once again, when I talked about this, you're not expensing at a high price or you're not expensing at too low of a price. You're just taking the average. Okay, all right. So again, the ultimate goal for a business is to make a profit. Okay, so again, whichever calculations works best for you. Okay. But the main goal is to make sure that you maximize your profits and minimize your costs. So in this kind of sense, LIFO would be more or less ideal because you're gonna make more profit if you sell your first items last. But once again, you're also gonna lose profits because you're selling your more expensive items first. So it just really depends, once again, on the type of organization and what you actually sell. All right, any questions here?
No.
Okay. So last thing here, so for this is the first time we get to see a chapter review. So here, I tried to take the concept and try to apply it in a way where it makes sense to do. So as we mentioned before, right, each one are your inventory on hand. When you're dealing with FIFO, you're going to start from the top and make your way down to the bottom of the batch, okay? LIFO, we're going to start from the bottom and make our way up to the top of the batch, okay? Whereas weighted average, we don't care. We just want to make sure that we have the total quantity and the total cost to give us our average cost per item, which in this case is right in the middle, okay? So once again, it just depends on how you view it, all right? If this concept works for you or if this kind of graphic depiction works for you, well, there you go, okay? All right? So any questions? All right, let's dive right in, okay? So once again, I'm not going to have you guys practice journalizing because we did the same exact journals for 5.1, 5.2, and 5.4. So they're going to look identical because these problems, once again, are identical, except the way that we cost it is going to be different. So in this case, let's start right here with April 5th. We purchased 1,000 units at $5 each with the freight costing you at $100. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our inventory worksheet here and plug in those numbers. So once again, it is now April 5th. We have a quantity of 1,000 at $5 each, with the freight costing you $100. So, what is my purchase price?
$5,000, and
Mm-hmm.
then total cost is going to be 5,100, and then cost per item is going to be 510.
Excellent. Okay, good. All right. So then what has happened next on April 10? Okay. We made another purchase of 750 units at $5.75 each, with a freight cost of 75. So for 10, we have 750 items at $5.75 with $75 freight. So, what is my total purchase price?
$4,387.50.
Okay, and my total cost?
Oh, that's what I just said.
Oh, okay, sorry. I
387.50.
got it. Right. So here, am I required to find my average cost per item?
Would you just for reference, just to know, like, I mean, if we're using Excel,
Uh-huh.
it's just gonna go up, right? So that's not like gonna be a task if we already have Excel using the program.
Mm-hmm.
Just more information.
Yes, it's an additional calculation. You're just going to end up adding another formula that you don't need. So
What worksheet are you working on? I'm sorry.
the periodic inventory worksheet, or 5.5, the first one. Okay, yeah, because I have two of them on there. Okay.
The first one, 5.5.
5.5, it should just say periodic inventory weighted average costing method, and there's no number behind it.
So it's not the exercise 2.
No, it's not. No, that's the one we're going to work on right after this one.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. All right. So yes, in this case, if you are using Excel and you just happen to punch in the formula, then leave it. It's like, once again, it's not wrong. It's just more work, if that makes any sense. Because in this case, we don't even need to have the cost per item until we reach the very end, right? Because we're taking the weighted average. Okay? But because we sold the first one, that's the only batch that we have. So if we stopped here, right? What is going to be my average cost per item? It's going to be that first batch for the 5,100 divided by my 1,000 items. Okay? So that one is always standard and always comes first because that's the only batch you have. But now that I'm making more purchases of inventory, I am not obligated to calculate or have to enter in another formula, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what my cost per item is. What it matters is my total quantity and my total cost. That's what I care about. So in this case, if you have Excel and you just plug in the formula anyway, once again, it's just extra work. It's not wrong. Okay? But again, it's just more extra work. Okay? Okay, so here I'm going to leave my average cost, my cost per item blank for now for that particular batch. So what happened on April 20th?
You bought 200 at $6 a piece, and freight was $20.
Okay, so here we are. 420. 200 items at $6. Okay, with a freight of $20. So what's my purchase price here? $1,200 plus 20 gives me a total cost of
1,220.
$1,220. Good. So I don't need to calculate my average cost anymore because I'm making more and more and more purchases. Okay. So then what happened on April 25th?
You
bought
purchased 500 units.
Mm-hmm.
for 625.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of freight cost of 50.
Okay, so 500 at 625. So 425, 500 at 625, and a freight of 50. So what is my purchase price here?
3,125.
Total cost?
3,175.
Okay. And then lastly, on April 30th, you have a total of 600 units on hand. So that means I reached the end of my given period because I had someone go down to the basement, calculate how much there was left. So I should have a total of 600 in my ending inventory. Okay. Now let's take a look at this. What's the first thing that we have to do?
Add up the quantities, add up average the unit price,
Mm-hmm.
and add up purchase price, freight expenses, and total cost.
Okay, so for this one, you don't need to add up the unit price. That doesn't matter. But the purchase price, the freight, and the total cost, yes, you have to add them all up. Okay? So here, I'm just going to format it. All right, so again, we've done this exercise already. So these numbers should all look familiar. Okay? Now, here's the difference. Now we have to actually calculate the average cost per item. So because we have no beginning inventory, you can calculate your average cost per item right here, okay? Because the assumption here is we don't have any returns or any discounts or anything that will affect our net purchases. So in this case, we can solve for it here, or you can wait till you get to the end of your goods available to ensure that that's the number that you're going to use to calculate your average cost per item. But in this case, we know what it is because I made it simple and easy. So how do I solve for my average cost per item?
Sorry, total cost divided by quantity.
Okay, so total cost of 13,882.50 divided by my total quantity of 24.50, and what should I get?
5,666,122,45,378.
Okay, so we have a long, nasty number right here. All right, there you go. So now what we're going to do here is, now that we have our average, we're going to plug in our numbers once again. So the quantity I purchased was 2,450 at my 13,837.50. Once again, I have no purchase returns or any allowances. So therefore, my subtotal should stay the same. Okay. Okay. Then my freight, once again, does not increase my quantity, but it does increase my total cost. So here, I'm going to add these up together. So I should still get 2,450, but this time I'm going to add my my purchases plus my freight to give me my total net purchase of 13,882.50.
Quick question, rewind.
Yes.
So the average, are we going off the total cost or just the purchase cost?
The total cost.
And then why are we adding freight on that? Because that's on already total cost.
Let's look at our number again. What number am I using? The 13,882.50 or the 13,637.50?
Oh, okay, done. Okay, got it.
Okay, so because remember this, when we charge our customers or when we sell our product, We want to make sure that we don't have to pay the $245 on our own. Like that's going to be considered a separate expense than being part of the product. Therefore, that means every time I make a purchase of these toys, I'm going to out myself and make the separate freight expense separate. Ideally, when you sell a product, you want to make sure that that product contains everything that it took you to get that product to your store. You want to ensure that the customer covers that, right? So then you can base off of your profits there, right? So you want to make sure that when you sell the items to the customer, you want them to cover every single cost for them to acquire that asset. So in this case, I'm going to charge them for freight expense. It's going to be included the cost of goods sold. If I had foreign exchange or foreign taxes on it, I'm going to charge them foreign taxes based on that. Okay? Because again, I'm going to be the distributor. I'm the one that's making these costs, or I'm buying these items for my store to have. And if I decide to separate it, then I kind of defeat the purpose of selling my product, because if I'm not essentially making any more of a profit, because at the end of the day, I still have to cost out all those expenses that it took me to do business. Okay? Now, you guys, you can do it that way. That's not wrong, that you could separate your freight expense. But in general rule of thumb, usually that's going to be definitely something that you want to consider. Instead of making it a monthly cost to you, you're going to tack it onto each item that you have to sell. All right? So in this case, we're going to be using the 13,882.50 to get the average cost per item. In this case, that's exactly what we did. We took the 13,882.50 and we included the freight, and we divided it by the total quantity of 24.50. Okay? All right, so messed up that formula. There you go. So now that we have our net purchases all done here, once again, no beginning inventory, right? We're assuming that we're starting inventory for the first time, or that we had no beginning inventory to begin with. So we're going to add up to get our goods available, which in this case is exactly what we purchased, right? So this is, oh, I'm in the wrong box. Okay. It didn't move down. Okay. No, that's not going to work. Okay, I'm just going to retype these numbers in. So, so this one is this one. This one is this one. Clean up my mess over here. Okay. All right, re-enter my formula. So it's this. Beginning plus your net purchases gives you your good available. So beginning plus my net purchases gives me my goods available. So I've already given the context that I have 600 items left in inventory. So how much did I sell?
1,850.
1,850. So here you have two choices. You want to sell for ending, or you want to sell for the...
What was the formula that you used for cost of goods?
This one?
Yeah.
I just took my goods available, subtract my ending inventory.
Okay.
Gives you your cost of goods sold. Think of it in terms of if I started out with 2,450 and I have 600 left, you just subtract the numbers. Okay? So here, now I need to solve for either cost of goods sold or the ending inventory. So in this case, because we're practicing the whole methods here, I'm going to go ahead and solve for my cost of goods sold. So here, I don't need to make a sum at all because I'm only dealing with one number and one number only. All right, so I'm going to take my 1850, right? My average cost per item, once again, is located right here. It's 5.66327. Okay. All right, just to make sure you guys know that this is that number. Okay. Okay, so here, this is where I'm going to do the equal round because I don't want to lose money out of this. Okay, because if I were to round up, I would technically lose profit because if for every 100 items I spend, that's $1 profit I lost. Okay, even if the cents is very minuscule, it's only 6 cents, or I guess one 6/10 of a cent. That's still a lot. That's 4/10 of a penny that you could add to your profit. Okay. So in this case, I want to make sure I go equal round. All right. Now the first criteria is to enter in your equation. In this case, I want to know what my quantity times my cost per item is. All right. I'm going to end the argument with a comma. Now the second part of the argument is going to ask you, how many decimal places do you want to round this answer to? In this case, I want it to 2 decimal places. Okay, so 2 decimal places is going to give me the nearest penny. And once you do that, you don't need to close parentheses. You can if you'd like, but you'd be able to press enter and it would recognize the formula that you entered here. So in this case, it is $10,482.70. Okay? All right, but if I did that regular, right, you're going to see the same thing because that's how I formatted my Excel sheet. But if I were to expand this, it's going to tell me that it's actually 74082. So in this case, I have a possibility or could potentially round up instead of round down. So therefore, I could have lost a lot of extra money as well. Okay? Or same thing here. If I were to round early, okay, let's say I round this to $5.67. If I were to multiply this straight on, here it's going to cost me $10,489. I just lost $7 to cost instead of a profit. All right? So do you see the context I'm trying to say here, where if you round too early, you can actually hurt your company at the end of the day. So that's a whole $7 I lost. And imagine if I'm doing this for just 1 month, imagine accumulating how many months that you need to get this grand total. And if you keep rounding up, you're going to keep losing more and more and more profits. So that's $7 I lost this month if I rounded up. Okay? So there you go. I showed you an example of why I do the equal round, because it just makes things a lot simpler. If I were to extend this number, right, because it's equal round, it stops at 70 cents. That means when I solve for my ending inventory, it's going to be perfect to 70 cents. This is perfect for our journal too, because we always have to journal in terms of dollars. You can't record 1/4 of a penny. Okay? So there is that.
Can I see the top of the worksheet real quick, please?
Top of the worksheet, here you go.
And then why did you, I was trying to catch up because I downloaded my worksheet later. Why did you not get the other cost per item?
Because we don't care about them anymore. At the end of the day, all we care about is what we have. We're going to get our total cost and our total quantity. All we care about is taking the total cost with the total quantity, all we care about is spreading the cost evenly through the number of items that we sold or purchased in this case. We don't care to do the cost per item. You can do it, it's not wrong, or if you want to keep your worksheet looking consistent, you can, but at the end of the day, does it matter? Okay, so if I were to just drag this down, right? Does it matter that my second batch is going to be for $5.85? Does it matter if my third batch is $6.10?
I'm just not grasping why it wouldn't.
Because you're calculating the average. What's most important is that I want to cost it at $5.66. We don't care about batches anymore. Okay, you can use this if you want to kind of like guesstimate what the average is going to be. Like if I went from $5.10 to $5.85, my average could be maybe $5.55. And then I introduce a $6, then my average should be $5.80. And then as I can keep increasing, sit to $6.35, then maybe it's now $5 and something. So in this case, we don't care about calculating the average, the cost per item anymore, because we're not going to associate them. We're not going to link them up. We're going to cost them as a grand total versus individually.
That's only when we're finding the average.
Only when you're finding the average. The definition, right, of average is you're going to take your total cost and divide it by the total amount of quantity, right? You're going to divide the cost evenly through the total number of items you purchased, right? This is a little applied math here, so algebra. To find the average, right, you add up all your totals and you divide it by the total amount that you have. Yes? Okay, so average height, right? That's taking 10 people, taking their height numbers, adding them all together, and dividing by the number of people, right? To get an average. I don't know how else to describe an average.
Right, no, I know how to get the average, but if that was the case, why wouldn't we take the 4 costs and divide them to find the average? I guess I'm not grasping why we chose the 510.
What do you mean we didn't choose 510? Okay, imagine this, right? Because the first one, right? That's our first batch. If that was the only batch that we purchased, then you only have 5,100 costing you at $1,000. I mean, sorry, you have the total cost of 5,100 and you only have 1,000 items available. But because I made more purchases, they don't count anymore, because at the end of the day, they're all not going to be reflecting the same, because we made more purchases of inventory. But if I only made that one purchase of inventory right there, right? I only have that one batch. How do I know how much it's going to cost me? Okay, you would solve for the average cost if you only had this. So, for example, if I were to just eliminate, let's say I didn't make any of these purchases, right? I didn't make any of those purchases. Okay, let me find my color real quick, and I just white it out. Okay, if I only made this purchase right here, right, and I only had that one purchase, what's my average cost per item?
The total cost divided by the quantity.
Right.
So it would be the 5,100.
No, it'd be the total cost divided by quantity. It'd be 5,100 divided by 1,000, which gives you Okay? The reason why I solved for the first one is because what if this was my only batch? What if this is my only thing I had here? Then how are you going to solve for the average cost per item? Then yes, then you only use these numbers. Correct. And it's the only batch that you have. So in this kind of context, if you don't have any other batches after that, then that's the average cost per item. But in this case, I made a second batch, right? I purchased another one. So by me purchasing another batch, my 510 is not gonna hold, because I have to take a new I need to add up my two quantities, and I have to add up my new two total costs, and then I would be able to solve for the average. But in this case, that's how you use the periodic inventory, right? You don't change the amounts here. You don't make this be the equal between the two. You don't add them together right away, because this is our total purchases, right? Okay, so again, that's why we solved for the first one, just in case that we decide that's the only batch of inventory we're going to make. It's the only batch of inventory that we have. So that's our first starting point. But because our scenario kept going on, then we don't need these averages anymore, because it doesn't matter what they are. At that point, I'm gonna recalculate my average cost per item at the end of the day, because I have a new quantity and I have a new total cost. Okay? All right. So my average cost per item is going to be $5.66327, right? So now I get down here. I've already calculated. I equal round it. And so now that I have this number right here, what is going to be my cost of goods sold? So what's going to be my ending inventory?
$600.
Okay, at what cost?
Wait, am I off? I was going to end up with 3,620 cents.
It should be 80 cents, not 20 cents. Did you round early?
Oh no, yeah, I'm gonna look at my notes, but yeah, my math's off.
Okay, so let's just practice it here. So if I were to solve for my ending inventory, so 600, right? If I have it at this unit price of this 6677 number, okay? I leave this in my calculator. If you're using calculators, you want to leave all the digits in there. You don't want to round to whatever decimals, right? You want to make sure that you keep all those numbers in there. And let's see, if I don't do my equal round, what is it going to be? Yep. 339980. Okay, which is right, 33980. So if you did end up rounding early, that's probably why you have that extra cents off.
I
Okay.
have a question,
Yes.
and it's just stuck in my head. You mentioned about if you're using a calculator, but why use a calculator when Excel can do all the math for you?
Okay, so exactly. Some people.
Digging on me, man. I'm just a calculator. I'm just a paper.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that some people are not.
Alan knows what he's doing. I'm following along with a paper, man.
Yes, a lot of people.
They teased me in the shop that I used to change tires on cars when they were stones. Okay, so yeah, I'm the paper and pencil guy too. Don't get me wrong, but it's just that when she said that, I just had to ask because Excel does everything for you.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's
No,
the.
yeah. So I'm like, I'm all doing over here. I'm trying to do it on the paper because I think I learned more
Yes,
on paper. But yeah, it's kind of
I'm the
Excel's
same
the
way.
best.
exactly,
Do it on paper.
and that's exactly
Gold.
what I was talking about too. Is like that's the reason why you're in classes, is because the next time you find a job, the next first requirement is that you need to be able to know the basic use and functions of a computer, because there's no more paper anymore. Well, in this case you can, but again, a lot of your mistakes are going to be because you do pen and paper. Okay? And that's one of the dangers of accounting, is that because we have accounting software like Excel that can get us to a more precise answer, if you continue to do paper and pen, yes, you're trying to understand the concept. That's completely okay, and that's why I make it available for you to have it available as pen and paper. But the whole purpose of this class is to also kind of integrate you to using and get more comfortable using Excel, because again, it's going to produce the answers a lot quicker than you having to punch all those numbers in a calculator. I do have a student, right? She uses Excel, but she still punches everything in the calculator and just types it right in. That's completely okay too, because once again, I can't expect everyone to be experts at Excel. Even though you did take the class, maybe you don't feel comfortable. You don't feel comfortable typing in the answers, and that's not wrong. Whatever way that you feel the most comfortable, then do it. But once again, it's just a matter of how much time consuming it is to punch it on a calculator, then punch it onto the computer, then et cetera, et cetera. When Alan is correct, why have a calculator when Excel can do everything for you? And again, Excel, there's the beauty of it is that it's very fluid, but you need to know what you're doing in order to make your functions work. If you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to be clicking aimlessly, and you're going to just keep pressing that enter button, and it's going to give you that error code every single time. And if you don't, like I said, if you don't know what you're doing, then I would, suggest maybe take a step back, do it on pen and paper until you feel comfortable doing it this way. Now, of course, for this class, I will continue using Excel, but I expect you to, whatever way that you could get to the answer, right? Because there's only one answer. That's the point of accounting. I don't care if you do pen and paper, calculator, Excel, whatever it is, your phone, as long as you get to the correct answer, that's all I'm concerned about. Okay? All right. So,
Well, I'm trying to use this spreadsheet with the formulas. So on the top for the cost per item, for the first one, it was 510. And then on the total on the bottom, how did you get that number?
Okay, so it's going to be the same, except we're taking our total cost and we're dividing it by our total quantity. So it's the same exact formula as up here. Oop, now I'm changing my formula now. It's the same exact formula as above, right? We're taking the total cost of that column, and then we're taking the divided by the total quantity in that column, and that's your cost per item. Average cost per item is the same thing, except you're doing your totals instead of individual.
Divided by the 24.50.
Correct.
Crap, there it is.
All right.
Man, I was kicking my butt right now. I was like, where the heck did she get that from?
Okay. All
Can I
right.
just see the very bottom?
The very bottom. Yes.
Thank you.
Is that good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Let me match it, make sure I have it right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, is everyone good so far? Does everyone kind of understand how the weighted average got calculated? Okay. All right, so now that we got this one, this is just the first one, right? We have two more exercises to go through. All right. So now that we reach the end, what's the next thing that we have to do? The journal, right? We gotta journalize our conversion entry. So what am I expected to have here on April 30th?
We didn't have nothing left over, so when do we start with? The April 5th?
No, because we're at the end of the given period. Remember, I told you guys we're not going to practice journalizing the purchases because they're identical to yesterday's scenario and they're identical to 5.1 and 5.2. I've had you guys journalize that same exact scenario 3 times already. So I don't need you to do it anymore. Okay,
In
so
that case, inventory, cost of
inventory,
goods,
correct.
purchase expense, freights, and then leftover inventory.
Okay, now do we have any leftover inventory? Or I'm sorry, did we have any beginning inventory is what you're referring to?
Oh no, we did not. So it would just be cost of goods.
No,
Cost of goods.
there's just nothing there.
Okay.
Because you said inventory, cost of goods sold, purchase expense,
Freight.
freight expense, and then you said one more inventory.
Yeah, that's why I was wrong. Because we didn't have no beginning inventory.
Correct. So if we don't have any beginning inventory, there's nothing else that we need to credit here. So what was my value? So what was my ending inventory?
$33.99.80.
Yes. And what was my ending balance in my cost of goods sold?
$482.70.
Correct. Okay. What was my total purchases?
$13,637.50.
Yes, the purchases. Good. What was my total freight? $245. Okay. So there we are at here. Let's double confirm that my debits match my credits. So I get 13,882.50 on the left, and I got 13,882.50 on the right. So where do we see this number? It's our goods available. Okay? So make sure that you know that. Mm-hmm. Everyone good with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So now,
Go back to that. I'm sorry, can you go back to that just conversion info?
mhm.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So now that we have this all down, let's see what has happened next. So we finished our inventory worksheet, so we're going to move on to a new one. So here it says to continue on with your inventory, and your inventory method is going to be periodic weighted average. So in this case, I'm going to start on April 30th. You have beginning inventory of 600 units on hand. So once again, we know that for a fact by solving from our previous scenario, right? So I'm going to transfer that amount over into my new worksheet on my inventory on hand. So I have a total of 600 left, right? And it's going to cost me a grand total of, what was the grand total? 339,980. Right? Here, I want you to always calculate the average cost per item. Okay? So I'm going to practice this over and over again, okay? Especially when we move into perpetual inventory. Okay? You're going to notice this trend. So here, I know that I should have $3,399.80, and I have 600 items left. So in this case, if I were to extend it, right, you're going to notice a few things. What happened here? It changed value by 10,000th of a penny. Okay? So that's why the great thing about this is that, or not, I guess not the great thing, but you always are going to be constantly calculating your average cost per item. Because this will change because we're making purchases of inventory. But this is just so then you know, because we're using a rounded number. I've already sold my stuff. I don't need to copy that formula once again, although it will reflect the same thing. But in this case, because I typed in this number here, it's a solid number. It's not going to give me those extra pennies, right? This is a rounded number. All right, that's what's going to be in my actual inventory. So I'm going to recalculate my average cost per item to give me a little more precise measurement of where the pennies actually need to go. Okay. So again, it could be necessary for you, but in this case, it's going to be unnecessary because what do we have? We're going to be making more purchases of inventory. So here, I'm just going to copy this down here.
So to get that, I'm trying to get my decimals the way yours are.
Okay, so do you remember that from Excel class? To change the decimals, you're going to go up to the format button right here. Yeah. You either extend to the left or extend to the right. Okay. That's just so then you know that that this isn't a solid number or it's not a rounded number. That's just all I'm doing is just to make sure that you know that this one you're going to have to calculate it but round towards the very end. Okay. So let's take a look at our inventory. Okay, so now that we have the purchase of inventory, the beginning balance of inventory in our worksheet, now let's focus on the purchases. So what happened on May 5th?
Purchase 500 units.
Purchase 500 units at $6.25 with a freight of $50. So here I am. It's May 5th. We purchased 500 units at $6.25 with a freight of $50. So what is my total purchase here?
$31.25.
$31.25. All right. Plus my freight would give me my total cost. So what is my total cost?
$31.75.
$31.75. In this case, I am not going to calculate my cost per item because I have beginning inventory. That will definitely affect my cost per item for my first purchase. So in this type of context, I can't solve for it because this isn't the only batch I have. I have a beginning batch. So this cost per item, I don't need to solve for because it will change. It doesn't matter. Okay? But for practice purposes only, if you want to add it in there, be my guest. Okay. So next is going to be on May 10th, we purchased another 800 units at $6 with a freight of $80. Okay, so May 10, 800 units at $6 with a freight of $80. So what is my total purchases here?
$4,800.
$4,800 plus my $80 to give me a total cost of $48.80. Good. Okay. Next here is that on May 20th, we purchased another 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of $15. So 300. Wrong one. So we purchased on May 20th $300 items at $6.15 with a freight of $15. Okay, so what's my purchase price here? $18.45 and plus my $15 freight gives me a total cost of $18.60. Again, we don't need to solve for the cost per item. Let's see what else happened. So what happened on May 25th?
purchased 100 units.
Okay, at 6:30 with a freight of 5. So here I am, May 25th, purchase of 100 items at 6:30 with a freight of, 6:30 with a freight of 5. Right? So what's my,
I would call BS on that $5 because I'm like, I've never seen nothing shit for $5.
again, these are fake numbers. Okay, these are just numbers that just were made up, not reflecting real life. Okay. So again, what is my total purchase price?
630.
$6.30 plus freight of $5. $6.35. Thank you. All right. Last but not least, what happened on May 31st?
We had 400 units on hand.
We have 400 units on hand. So therefore, we're going to go ahead and go down to the bottom of our worksheet and make sure that we fill in that the ending balance is going to be for 400 units. Okay. So let's plug in our numbers. All right. What is the total quantity that I have?
1,007.
1,700. All right. And what's my total purchases?
10,400.
And then freight
150.
total is going to be total cost.
10,550.
Good. Excellent. All right. So once again, in this case, you can solve your average cost per item here, but we have beginning inventory. That's going to change. So here we can ignore that part right there. Just because we have beginning inventory. So again, beginning inventory kind of messes up a lot of things. All right. So now we got to plug in our numbers. What was the total quantity that I purchased?
1,700.
I don't like that. Okay, so 1,700. All right. How much did it cost me?
10,550.
Oh, that's the total cost. That's including freight.
Okay. 10,400.
Total purchases only. Again, we don't have any
10,000.
returns. So we're going to subtract 0, which should give us exactly the same number. We have freight. What was the freight?
150.
Okay. We're going to add our freight. Okay. This is going to make a lot more sense once we dive into the whole entire Chapter 5 review on Monday. Okay.
Can
So-
you give me a second to catch up my numbers with you?
Okay. Yeah, of course. Okay. So here, we're just finding out what our net purchases are. Okay. We're purchasing 1,700 at a total of 10,400. We added the freight of 150 to get our grand total of 1055. Okay. And there we are. Okay. So now, you're okay now, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we need to plug in the rest of our information here. Do we have beginning inventory?
600.
Yes, we have the 600. And at what cost is those 600 items?
$33.99.80.
Good. All right. We're going to copy the net purchases from right above because we solved for already. So we're going to bring down that 1,700 and we're going to bring down that 1055. Right? So it says net purchases, so that's where you're going to place it down. Okay. So now we're going to solve for our goods available. So in this case, we're going to add these two numbers together. So 600 plus the 17 gives us how much?
2,300.
2,300. Then we're going to add this plus this to give us our grand total cost of
13,949.80.
good. So this is our goods available. That's what we have available to sell. If someone went down to the basement and told you you only have 400 left, how many items did you sell?
1,900.
1,900. Okay? So this is where we need to solve for our new average cost per item, because let's look at this. Our net purchases, right? That's not all we have. We also have to include our beginning balances because we're taking a weighted average. We're going to add up everything and we're going to total up everything and we're going to divide it by the total quantity. So in this case, we're looking at 13,949.80 and we're going to divide it by our 2,300 because that is what is available. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and enter that formula right ahead in my middle section here on the worksheet. So my cost was $3,949.80, and I'm going to divide that whole entire thing by 2,300. And what do I get for my average cost per item?
607.
607, all right? Right now, that's because I formatted my Excel spreadsheet to look like that. But if I expand those numbers out, it is definitely more than that. Look, we increased it because it was half a penny. And we mentioned this many times before. This half of a penny is very dangerous, right? In math, in this kind of context, right? We're always been taught to, when you see that number 5, you always increase it. But in this case, right, if we increase it, we would have lost a total of, you would have lost a lot for a profit, especially because we sold 2,300 items. Yes, you'll lose a lot. So in this case, we sold a total of the 2,300, right? No, we sold 1,900, excuse me. We sold 1,900. And I'm going to leave my number as is in my calculator or in Excel. And I'm going to go ahead and enter this formula in. So equal round. Okay. Open parentheses. My first argument is going to be my quantity times my cost. End my argument with a comma. And I want 2 decimal places. So 2 to end my argument and enter. So in this case, it's going to give me a rounded number. So it's going to calculate the number and then it's going to round it to the nearest penny, and that's what it's going to display for me. Okay? So that's how much my cost of goods sold is for. Okay? Once again, go ahead.
No, I was going to just ask you if you could show me the formula in F7 again, or F17, I'm sorry.
So this one, F17, F7. Oh, that's to find the average cost per item?
Yeah, I did it, and I was trying to figure out what I did wrong.
Okay. So remember, we're going to take the total cost and divide it by our total quantity. So in this case, my total cost is going to be the 13,949.80. All right? I'm going to divide the whole thing by my total quantity, which in this case is 2,300. Enter. Okay. Did you not get 607?
Yeah, I just, you know what, I think I used one of the, for one of my, when I was doing my math, I used one of the wrong cells.
Okay.
Because I had the division in there, but it came up wrong. So I just went ahead and just erased it and redid it just followed with you, and yeah, I got it. So
Okay, perfect. Okay. So once again, there's my total cost here. I'm going to show you again in case you decide to either round early. So for in this kind of sense, we're supposed to round up, right? It's 6065. So if we did this at 607, let's see how much cost it is now. Okay, I don't need to do the equal round because it's a solid number now. I would have cost this at 33, 11, 5, 33 even. That is a total of $6.25. Wait, 6 plus 3. Oh, that's a whole $9. That's a whole $9 that you spent to costing instead of making it a profit. Okay? So that's what I wanted to show you here. Some companies will say, I don't care what you do, I want you to round all the numbers. And if the inventory manager tells you that, you got to do it. You got to round everything to the nearest penny, whether you round up or round down. Now, if they enforce that rule for GAAP to do the conservatism, you're going to round down. Remember, we always round down, never round up when it comes to the fifth decimal or that half of a penny. All right, so in this case, there it is. Okay, so yes, so I'm going to erase this because
Can I just see the bottom part again? I'm sorry.
this part. Okay, so from this, what should be my ending inventory?
The 11,523.
That's my cost of goods sold.
$2,426.05.
$2,426.05 is correct, right? You can also calculate this as well if you choose to do so, right? There it is. If you calculate that way, you'd solve the same way too. 2426.05. Okay. So I'll leave it there in case you need that as a reference that you can solve it this way too. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Once again, we finally completed our inventory worksheet. So now what do we need to do next?
The conversion.
The conversion. Okay. So this time it is now 5:31. All right. What am I going to be? What's my journal going to be?
Inventory.
Inventory.
Cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold.
Purchase expense and freight expense.
Good. Absolutely. Correct. Now, what else do I have to have here?
Inventory again.
Yes, I need to have inventory once again because this time I'm dealing with beginning inventory. And I'm essentially trying to get rid of my beginning inventory. All right. So here, what are my numbers here? What was my ending inventory? Oh, wrong worksheet. What's my ending inventory?
1,900.
19 is the cost of goods sold.
No, 11,523.75.
That's the cost of goods sold. Ending inventory.
2426.05.
Yes. Okay. 2426.05. Now what's my cost of goods sold, Melinda?
The 1,900. The 11,523.75.
Yes. right? What was my total purchases?
$10,550.
Okay, that's with including my freight
Oh, sorry.
purchases.
$10,400.
There you go. And then my total freight,
150.
got it. And then now I also have to add my beginning inventory, which was yes. So now that I completed my journal, make sure rule of thumb is that your debits match your credits. So in this case, I have a total of 13,949.80 on my left, and I have 13,949.80 on my right, which is the total number of goods available. Okay, so there's your checkpoint that you did the conversion entry correct, but also you did the journal or the inventory worksheet correct. All right, so far so good. We're going to practice this one more time when we come back from the break. Okay, everyone good?
Yes.
Okay. So right now it is 3 o'clock, so take a 20-minute break and be back by 3:20.
And then when we come back, we're gonna do 5.2.
The exercise number 2.